Hey guys, I figured I'd try to bring myself up into the 21st century and finally do a video blog. I've had a couple requests for them and I don't like it, but if you guys enjoy these, I'll try to overcome my fear of the camera and do more of these in the future. But today I wanted to discuss a topic that seems to be coming up a lot more in my client base, and I know we've been tossing it around over on the Body Improvements Facebook page, and it's the topic of alternatives to calorie counting or nutritional tracking. And I should definitely start by saying calories always count. There's no getting around that. They always matter. If you want to lose fat, you need to give your body a reason to tap into the stored energy on your body, i.e. body fat. And the key to unlock that door is a sustained deficit over time. So you can't get around that fact. That being said, that calories always count, it does not necessarily mean that you always need to be counting them. And that's a pretty important distinction that I think certain people need to be making. Don't get me wrong, there are a large amount of people who thrive on the whole numbers-based approach. They totally get off on the whole weighing food day by day, meal by meal. They love assessing their day's nutrition in terms of calories and nutrients against the benchmark, their daily targets, using graphs and charts. They just thrive on that whole numbers-based mentality, and they are usually analytical by nature, and it works for them. But on the flip side of that coin is a faction of people who that approach backfires for. And why it backfires depends on the person. There are a lot of reasons why it can backfire. Two notable ones would be the intense focus on the numbers of nutritional intake, taking away from one's ability to be in tune with their body. They're so focused on the numbers that they forget to really listen to hunger signals. They eat in response to the numbers versus, are they actually physically hungry? And they lose a sense of monitoring satisfaction during a meal. They're not present during the meal. They're just so focused on the numbers that they forget to ask themselves, am I to a point of satisfaction, or am I eating more than I have to just based on what the numbers say? So there's that, and there's also the whole focus of numbers making people feel boxed in. If you have a daily numbers set up, as the day wears on, your allotment for calories and nutrients gets smaller and smaller. And for some people, that fact leads to feelings of anxiety. They feel as if their back's being pressed against the wall, and that mentality or perception can fuel rebellious thinking, where they feel like they are so pressed that they might as well cave and binge. And at a minimum, for some people, the whole intense focus on numbers leads to just overall crappy feeling. So it's definitely not for everybody, and having alternatives is pretty important for these people. As with pretty much anything in the fitness and nutrition game, there is no universal way to do anything. There's a lot of ways to skin any cat that you're trying to skin, and this is no different. So don't be married to any one approach, and get comfortable with the idea of experimentation. So if the whole calorie counting, nutritional tracking approach is not comfortable for you, try something different. Don't be afraid to experiment, because that's how you figure out what fits you. So I wanted to kind of, I don't want to get into the whole list of options that are out there for alternatives, but for my own nutrition, how I eat personally, I'm not a calorie counter. I don't like it. I'm not comfortable doing it day by day, meal by meal. It's not that it leads to any, binging or anything for me. I don't like it. So what I tend to do is use a meal plan. And I find a lot of people get scared off with the idea of a meal plan because they're making it out to be something it's not. They're either making it out to be some rigid construct that you can't deviate from. so you're locked into this fixed meal plan and it just sucks. That's not it at all. Other people make it out to be a lot of work that needs to be done in order to have a meal plan. You know, I'll plan my meals for the next 4 to 8 weeks in 20 or 30 minutes, so it's not that much work. And all I'm really doing when I'm doing a meal plan is starting with the daily totals in terms of calories and nutrients. They are ultimately what steers the boat, so it makes sense to start there. And I set my calories based on my goal at hand, have it be fat loss or muscle gain. And then from there, I'll look at my nutrient targets, setting protein, carbs, and fats. I know people are going to ask me what the ideal, split between protein, carbs, and fats should be. There's no universal truth that everybody needs to adhere to. It's going to depend on you, your individual preferences and tolerances, your goals. If I'm pressed to throw out numbers, I think it's important to base your nutrition on protein, and having a target of, call it 0.75 to 1.25 grams per pound is probably a good ballpark to find yourself in. If you are overweight by a good bit, basing that target on goal body weight versus total body weight is probably a good idea. In terms of fat, being in the ballpark of 25 to 35% of your daily calories is probably a good idea. Having a handful of servings of fruit and another handful of servings of fibrous vegetables each day is a very, very good idea. And then filling in the remainder of your calorie allotment with pretty much whatever you want tends to work with a lot of my clients. Definitely works for me. But once I have those totals in place, I'll just sprinkle them across the number of meals I set up in my meal plan. And that number, call it meal frequency, if you will, depends on the person. For me, I tend to prefer a pretty even distribution of meals across the day. So I'm pretty much eating meals throughout the day from morning until bedtime. And that tends to be 5 or 6 meals or snacks per day. I have clients who thrive on the whole intermittent fasting approach, where they're consolidating their nutrition to smaller portions of the day, and that works for them. So there's no universal code in terms of how many meals you need in a day. The important thing is those daily totals. Pick a frequency of meals that works for you, and then spread those totals across the meals that you set up. So that's how I go about it. Why it's not rigid is I tend to create my 5 or 6 meals, and then on the side, quote unquote, I have swaps. I can exchange whole meals for meals that are on the plan if I'm not in the mood for that particular meal. I can interchange just individual foods that I'm not in the mood for. For example, today I had scheduled to eat 5 ounces of chicken breast. I wasn't in the mood for any kind of meat, so I swapped a serving of eggs that was equal in calories to the 5 ounces of chicken. So, it works, it's flexible. Come 4, 6, 8 weeks down the road, I'm usually pretty sick of the meal plan. So I'll add new options, or I'll totally overhaul the plan. But again, it's 20 to 30 minutes worth of work with all the tools that are at our disposal nowadays with apps and websites. It's really brainless work. So that's how I approach my own nutrition. It's one option that deviates from the day-to-day, meal-by-meal nutritional tracking, and hopefully it gives you some idea. I'm going to cut the camera here and just because I have it going on behind the scenes here, I actually am preparing some of my food for the week, and I'll show you how that fits into my meal plan. The whole combination of meal planning and advanced food prep for the week tends to really fit well together. So I'll show you what I did in terms of food prep, and hopefully, this did something for you. Thanks for listening. Okay guys, so here is about 80 to 85% of my diet for the week. Some of the foods will last 3 or so days, others will last most of the week. This took about 30 minutes out of my weekend to prepare. While my meats, I have chicken, chicken breast and lean ground beef patties there. While those were on the grill, I was boiling hard-boiled eggs and sweet potatoes. And while those two things were cooking, I was packaging up nuts. You got almonds, sunflower seeds, and walnuts. Some sliced hard Monterey Jack cheese, strawberries, grapes, green beans. You got some salad back there, nectarines, apples, some yogurt. And again, it's the vast majority of my diet. Most of what you see here on the table is whole single ingredient foods, and it's like I always say, this stuff should comprise the vast majority of your diet. It should be the foundation. Upon it you can pretty much put whatever you want to bring you up to your total calorie needs. What will I eat in addition to this stuff? It really depends on what I feel like having. You know, it'll range from cookies and cake to more of what you see here on the table. It's pretty open, and you know, I can get away with eating pretty much whatever I want because I stay present while I'm eating, and I don't eat for emotional reasons most of the time, and I'm constantly mindful of my next bite. You know, I'm savoring what I'm eating, and while filling up, I'm asking myself, am I satisfied? And I make it a point to not strive for being overly full. So that's sort of my foundation of day-to-day eating. Hopefully it gives you some incentive to do your own food prep, because it does give you a lot of return on your investment.